They shoved her into the parking lot at 21:47 hours and told her to get lost. 3 men, all former SEALs, all twice her size. Her equipment scattered across the concrete. Blood from her split lip tasted like copper and humiliation. One of them, Garrett, kicked her duffel bag across the asphalt and laughed. Mason spit near her boots. Voss leaned down inches from her face and whispered the words that would destroy them all. "Stay down, little girl. This is your last warning." But Maya Chen didn't stay down. She looked up at them through the California darkness, wiped the blood from her mouth, and smiled. Not because she was broken. Because in 8 hours, these 3 decorated veterans would learn she was the youngest Navy SEAL in history, and their careers were already over. Before we show you how a 25-year-old woman became the nightmare these men never saw coming, drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and tap the bell icon, because what you're about to witness proves that the most dangerous person in the room is always the one they underestimate. Now let's go back to where this really started. Maya's boots hit the gravel of the Joint Special Operations Training Facility at 05:47 hours on a Tuesday morning that felt like every other morning she'd ever reported for duty. The sun hadn't broken the horizon yet. The air still carried that pre-dawn cold that makes your breath visible and your muscles tight. She carried a single duffel bag, government issue, packed with the kind of precision that only comes from years of living out of identical bags in dozens of countries most Americans couldn't find on a map. The guard at the gate was Army. Young, maybe 22. He took her ID without looking at her face. Visiting someone, reporting, that made him look up. He studied the card, then her, then the card again. "This says you're cleared for level 3 access." "It does. You're not on my roster." "Check again." He did. His finger scrolled down the tablet screen once, twice, then stopped. Chen M. Instructor Candidate Evaluation Program. He looked at her again, different this time. "You're the one from—" "Yes." He handed the ID back fast, like it had burned him. "Sorry, ma'am. Didn't realize. Gates open." When she walked through without another word. The facility sprawled across 40 acres of carefully maintained chaos. Obstacle courses, shooting ranges, hand-to-hand combat pits, classrooms that looked more like bunkers. This was where the military sent its best to become better, where special operations candidates came to prove they deserved the title, where instructors came to prove they deserved to teach. The main building sat at the center like a concrete heart. She headed straight for it. Her duffel didn't bounce as she walked. Her stride didn't hesitate. She'd learned a long time ago that the first 60 seconds of any new environment determined how everyone would treat you for the next 60 days. Inside, the air smelled like industrial cleaner and old coffee. A bulletin board near the entrance displayed the week's training schedule. Her name wasn't on it. That was the first problem. "Can I help you?" The voice came from behind a desk that had seen better decades. The man sitting there was Navy, but not operator. Admin. Soft hands, clean uniform. The kind of guy who'd never had to low-crawl through mud while someone shot over his head. "Maya Chen, reporting for ICP." He typed something, frowned at his screen. "I don't have you on the check-in list." "I sent my orders 3 weeks ago." "Well, they're not in the system." She set her duffel down slowly. Carefully. The way you set down something heavy before you have to pick up something heavier. "Can you check with your supervisor?" "He's not in yet. Come back at 0800. "I'm scheduled for morning formation at 0600. "Not according to my system." She stared at him for 3 full seconds. Long enough for him to shift in his chair. Long enough for him to understand that this wasn't going away. "I'll wait," she said. She sat down on the bench against the wall, pulled out her phone, sent a single text message to a number she hadn't used in 6 months. Then she waited. At 0557, the first group of candidates started filtering in. All men, all big, all moving with that specific kind of confidence that comes from knowing you're dangerous. They clocked her immediately. Every single one. Lost sweetheart. The voice belonged to a guy who looked like he'd been carved out of granite and bad decisions. Probably 35, blonde hair cut high and tight, tattoos running up both forearms. The kind of man who'd never been told no by anything except maybe a promotion board. No. Then you're in the wrong building. Family Services is across the lot. I'm right where I need to be. He grinned. Not friendly, not warm, the kind of grin that's really a warning. This is a special operations training facility. We don't do tours. I'm not touring. Then what are you doing? She stood up. She was 5'6". He was at least 6'2". She looked up at him without tilting her head back. Waiting for formation. That got a laugh. From him, from the 3 guys behind him. Big, loud, meant to humiliate. You're serious. Always. What's your rate? That's not your business. It is if you're trying to join my training block. I'm not trying to join anything. I'm assigned. Another guy stepped forward. Dark hair leaner, but with the same edge in his eyes. His name tape said Mason. Assigned to what? ICP. Silence. The wrong kind. The kind that comes before something breaks. Mason looked at Granite Guy, who she could now see was named Garrett. Garrett looked at a third man broader than both of them with a nose that had been broken at least twice. His name tape said Voss. That's not possible, Garrett said. ICEP is instructor-level evaluation. You need at least 5 years operational experience and 2 deployment cycles. I know the requirements. Then you know you don't qualify. I didn't say I don't qualify. I said I'm assigned. Voss laughed. It sounded like rocks in a blender. Listen, little girl. I don't know who you slept with or whose daughter you are, but this isn't the place for whatever diversity stunt your command is trying to pull. The words landed like they were supposed to. Hard, demeaning, designed to make her leave before they had to make her leave. She didn't blink. You done? Excuse me. Are you done talking? Because formation starts in 2 minutes and I don't want to be late on my first day. She picked up her duffel and walked past all 3 of them. Shoulders back, eyes forward. Heart rate steady at 62 beats per minute, because she'd trained herself years ago to control the things that mattered and ignore the things that didn't. Behind her, she heard Garrett mutter, "This is going to be fun." She didn't respond. Didn't turn around. Just kept walking toward the formation area outside Dachshund. The training yard was packed. 50 candidates, maybe more. All men. All experienced. All standing in rough lines that suggested military bearing without the actual discipline of active duty formation. These were contractors, reservists, active duty volunteers, the kind of people who'd already proven themselves once and were here to prove it again. Maya took a position at the far right of the back row, not hiding, just observing. A moment later, Garrett, Mason, and Voss positioned themselves directly in front of her, blocking her view of the front. She shifted left. They shifted left. She shifted right. They shifted right. Problem? Garrett asked over his shoulder. Not yet. Good. Let's keep it that way. At exactly 0600, a man walked out of the main building and stopped at the front of the formation. He was older, maybe 50, with the kind of face that had seen things most people only have nightmares about. His uniform said Marine Corps. His bearing said reconnaissance. His name tape said Rodriguez. "Good morning." The group responded with scattered replies, not unified, not sharp. That seemed to bother Rodriguez. "I said good morning." This time the response was louder, better, still not great. Rodriguez walked along the front line, hands behind his back, eyes scanning every face. "This is the Instructor Candidate Evaluation Program. Some of you have been here before. Some of you are new. All of you think you're hot shit." A few laughs. "You're not. You're here because someone somewhere thinks you might be capable of teaching others how to do the things you've done. Teaching is harder than doing. Teaching requires patience, discipline, the ability to watch someone fail and know exactly how to fix it without taking the weapon out of their hands and doing it yourself." He stopped walking. "This program lasts 4 weeks. Most of you won't finish. Some of you will quit. Some of you will fail. Some of you will get hurt badly enough that we'll send you home in a brace. And some of you, very few, will prove that you're worth the trust we're about to place in you." He pulled out a tablet. "When I call your name, sound off." He started reading, names she didn't recognize, men responding with sharp, loud acknowledgments. The list went on. 20 names. 30. 40. Her name wasn't called. The list ended. Rodriguez looked up. "That's everyone. If I didn't call your name, you need to see admin immediately because you're not supposed to be here." Maya raised her hand. Every head turned. Rodriguez stared at her like she'd just appeared out of thin air. "Problem. You didn't call my name, sir." "What's your name?" "Chen." He looked at his tablet, scrolled, frowned. "I don't have a Chen on my list." "I submitted orders 3 weeks ago." "Then your orders didn't make it into the system." Garrett turned around, smiling. "Told you," he said quietly. "Wrong place, little girl." Rodriguez walked toward her. Not aggressive, just direct. "What unit are you with?" "That's classified, sir." His eyebrows went up. "Classified." "Yes, sir." "This is a special operations facility. Everything here is classified. My unit assignment is above this facility's clearance level." The silence that followed was spectacular. Even Rodriguez looked caught off guard. "Above this facility's—" He stopped himself, took a breath. "Who authorized your attendance? Warcom. Naval Special Warfare Command authorized you personally." "Yes, sir." "And you have documentation of this in my packet, which should have been forwarded to your admin office 3 weeks ago." Rodriguez looked at her for a long moment, then at the tablet, then back at her. "What's your rate, SO1? "Special Operations First Class," he said it slowly. "How old are you?" 25, sir." Voss snorted loud enough for everyone to hear. "Bullshit. There's no way you're a rated SEAL at 25. The pipeline alone takes 3 years minimum." Maya didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on Rodriguez. "Sir, if you'll check with your admin chief, I'm sure this can be cleared up quickly." "Oh, it'll be cleared up," Garrett muttered. "Right into the parking lot." Rodriguez held up a hand. "Everyone hold position. Chen, come with me." She followed him inside. Behind her she could hear the laughter starting. The jokes, the mockery. She'd heard it all before. In Hell Week, in SEAL qualification training, in every deployment briefing where she'd walked into a room full of men who assumed she was lost. Inside Rodriguez's office, he closed the door and pointed to a chair. "Sit." She sat. He pulled up something on his computer, typed fast, waited. His face changed 3 times in 10 seconds. Confusion, surprise, something close to anger. "You've got to be kidding me." "Sir." He turned the monitor toward her. On the screen was her personnel file. All of it. The real one. You're not a candidate. No, sir. You're the evaluator. Yes, sir. And you didn't think to tell me that before I called formation. I tried to check in at 0557, sir. Admin said I wasn't in the system. I sent you a text at 0558. You didn't respond. He checked his phone. Swore. I had it on silent. He looked at her again. How long were you planning to let this play out? As long as necessary to complete my assessment, sir. Your assessment of what? Facility culture instructor candidate quality and command responsiveness to irregular situations. He sat back in his chair. You're evaluating me. I'm evaluating the program, sir. You're part of the program. And what's your assessment so far? Incomplete. Give me the highlight reel. She didn't hesitate. Admin failed to process advance orders. Formation was undisciplined. Candidate behavior toward an unknown individual was immediately hostile and inappropriate. And 3 candidates committed verbal harassment that would constitute grounds for removal under UCMJ Article 93. Rodriguez rubbed his face with both hands. Who were the 3? Garrett, Mason, and Voss. Of course it was. He stood up. Wait here. He left. She sat in silence for 4 minutes. Then he returned with another man younger carrying a folder. This is Lieutenant Marquez. He's going to reprocess your check-in properly. You'll be issued a temporary bunk in the instructor housing wing, not the candidate barracks. Your evaluation authority is now active. You have full access to all facilities, all drills, and all personnel files. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet, because I'm about to make your job harder. How, sir? By not telling anyone who you are. She blinked. That was not standard protocol. Sir, that's irregular, I know. But if I announce you're here as an evaluator, everyone will be on their best behavior. I won't get an honest assessment, and neither will you. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to go out there and tell them that admin found your orders, and you're cleared to participate. You're going to train alongside the candidates. You're going to be treated exactly like they are, and you're going to document everything. For how long? Until I say otherwise, or until something happens that requires me to intervene, whichever comes first. She stood. Understood, sir. One more thing. Sir? If those 3 give you any more trouble, you have my authorization to handle it however you see fit, within reason. What's the definition of within reason? No permanent damage, no hospitalization, and no witnesses if it can be avoided. She almost smiled. Clear, sir? When she walked back outside, the formation had broken into clusters. Men stretching, talking, hydrating, preparing for the first training block. Garrett saw her first. Well? Admin found my orders. I'm cleared. Mason laughed. You're serious? Yes. So you're actually going to try to keep up with us. I'm going to do what I'm assigned to do. Voss stepped closer. Too close. Invasion of personal space designed to intimidate. Let me give you some advice, little girl. This isn't basic training. This isn't some feel-good empowerment course. This is where people get hurt. Badly. And nobody's going to go easy on you because you're small or young or because somebody in an office somewhere decided to make a political statement. I don't need anyone to go easy on me. Then you're dumber than you look. Maybe. Or maybe you're scared. That stopped him. Scared of what? Of what happens if I'm better than you. The silence that followed was the kind that makes good men step in and bad men step up. Garrett stepped up. You want to play games, fine. But when you wash out and you will, don't come crying to us about how unfair it was. I won't. Good. He turned away. The others followed. But she could feel their eyes on her. All of them. Not curious anymore. Not amused. Something else. Something darker. She'd just made herself a target. But that was fine. Targets were easy to hit. And she'd spent the last 7 years learning how to shoot back. The first drill was endurance assessment. 3 miles full gear timed. Nothing fancy. Just proof you could move under load without collapsing. The candidates lined up at the start marker. She positioned herself at the back. Not hiding. Just observing. Garrett was at the front, talking loud enough for everyone to hear. $20 says she doesn't finish. I'll take that bet, someone said. $20 says she doesn't make it past mile 1. Laughter. Agreement. Money changing hands. The whistle blew. They ran. She didn't sprint. Didn't try to prove anything in the first 100 meters. Just settled into the pace her body had learned in Coronado on the beaches where Hell Week had tried to break her and failed. Her breathing found its rhythm. Her legs found their cadence. Her mind went quiet. At the half-mile mark, she was still at the back. At the mile mark, she'd passed 3 people. At mile 2, she'd passed 12. By mile 5, she was in the middle of the pack, and the men around her were starting to notice. Where'd she come from? She wasn't this close before. How was she not breathing hard? She didn't answer, didn't look at them, just kept moving. 1 foot, then the other. The only 2 things that mattered. At mile 275, she passed Voss. He tried to speed up. Couldn't. His breath was ragged, his form breaking down. She pulled ahead smoothly. No effort, no strain. Just better. The finish line appeared. Garrett crossed first chest-heaving hands on his knees. Mason was second. Then 3 others she didn't know. Then her. 7th overall, out of 53 candidates. She crossed the line, slowed to a walk, controlled her breathing down manually. Heart rate dropping from 168 to 140 to 115 in the span of 90 seconds. Garrett stared at her. Lucky run. She didn't respond, just drank water and waited for the next drill. The next drill was upper body endurance. Pull-ups, max reps, no time limit. Just hold on until you can't anymore. Candidates went 1 at a time. The average was 23. The highest was 31, achieved by a Marine who looked like he'd been built in a lab specifically for this. When her turn came, the talking stopped. Every eye on her, waiting for the failure they were sure was coming. She gripped the bar, pulled herself up, smooth, controlled. Chin over the bar, down, up, down, up. At rep 15, someone muttered, "Okay, she's stronger than she looks." At rep 25, the muttering stopped. At rep 30, Garrett said, "No way." At rep 35, she dropped off the bar, shook out her arms, and walked away. No celebration, no smile, no acknowledgement. Just done. Mason stared after her. "What the hell is she?" "I don't know," Garrett said. "But I'm going to find out." By lunch, the dynamic had shifted, not toward acceptance, toward something colder. They weren't laughing anymore. They weren't dismissing her. They were watching, calculating, deciding. She ate alone, not by choice. The cafeteria had a clear social structure groups at every table based on unit background friendship. No one invited her to sit. So she sat at an empty table near the far wall and ate in silence. Garrett, Mason, and Voss sat 3 tables away, talking low, glancing at her every 30 seconds. She knew what was coming. She'd seen it before. When men feel threatened by someone they think is beneath them, they don't adapt. They attack. It was only a matter of time. The question wasn't if. It was when. And how she'd respond. The afternoon drills were combatives, hand-to-hand controlled, supervised. Partners rotated every round. Technique over strength. Precision over power. She was paired with a contractor named Simmons. Big Guy experienced not hostile. He reset her grip twice, offered tips on her stance. Professional. "You've done this before," he said. "A little. More than a little. Your balance is too good for a beginner." She didn't reply. Just reset and went again. Next rotation, she was paired with Mason. He didn't offer tips. He gripped her wrist hard enough to hurt, twisted sharp enough to strain. When she tapped out, he held on an extra second. Not long enough for the instructor to notice, long enough for her to know it was deliberate. "Careful," he said. "You could get hurt here." She looked at him. No anger, no fear, just assessment. "So could you," he smiled. "Is that a threat, little girl? It's a fact." The instructor called time. They separated. But the message had been sent. Both ways. By 1800 hours, the first day was over. Candidates filtered toward the barracks, exhausted, sore, already questioning whether they wanted to do this for 3 more weeks. She headed toward the instructor housing wing. It was quieter there. Smaller rooms, private bathrooms, no bunk beds or forced socialization. She locked the door behind her, set her gear down, and checked her phone. One message, from Rodriguez. "How was day 1?" She typed back. "Exactly what I expected." His response came fast. "Do I need to step in?" "Not yet." "Let me know if that changes." She set the phone down and sat on the edge of the bed. Her wrist still hurt where Mason had gripped it. Her shoulder was sore from the morning ruck. Her legs were tight from the run. But none of that mattered. Because tomorrow she'd do it all again. And the day after. And the day after that. Until they either accepted her or removed themselves. She'd survived Hell Week with stress fractures in both legs. She'd survived 3 combat deployments in places the government wouldn't acknowledge. She'd survived being the first, the youngest, the only woman in rooms full of men who wanted her gone. 3 arrogant ex-SEALs weren't going to be the thing that broke her. Not even close. At 2100 hours, someone knocked on her door. She answered it without opening fully, kept the chain on. Garrett stood on the other side. "We need to talk." "No, we don't." "Yeah, we do." "Say what you need to say from there." He glanced down the hallway. Empty, then back at her. "You don't belong here. That's not your decision to make." "It's not about decisions. It's about reality. You're going to get hurt. Or worse, you're going to get someone else hurt because we'll be too busy worrying about you to focus on the mission. I don't need you to worry about me. That's not how this works. In the field, we watch each other's backs. If you can't pull your weight, I pulled my weight today. I'll pull it tomorrow. And I'll keep pulling it until someone with actual authority tells me otherwise." His jaw tightened. "You think this is a game? It's not. This is about lives. Real lives. People who depend on the guys coming out of this program to know what they're doing. I know what I'm doing." "No, you don't. Because if you did, you'd realize that being here is selfish. You're making a point at the expense of everyone else's safety." She looked at him for a long moment. "Are you done?" "No, I'm trying to help you. By telling me I'm selfish, by telling me I don't belong, that's not help, that's ego. This isn't about ego." "Yes, it is. Because you can't handle the idea that someone smaller, younger, and female might be as capable as you. So you're wrapping your insecurity in concern and calling it leadership." His face flushed. "You don't know anything about me." "I know enough. You're making a mistake." "Maybe. but it's my mistake to make." She closed the door. He stood outside for 10 more seconds, then walked away. She locked the deadbolt and sat back down on the bed. That wasn't a warning. That was reconnaissance. He was testing her boundaries, her reactions, her breaking point. He didn't find one, and that she knew was going to make him angrier. Day 2 started the same way. Formation at Euro 600, drills at Euro 630. Endurance, strength, technical skills. She performed at the same level. Top 10 in everything. Top 5 in most things. Never first. Never flashy. Just consistently, undeniably competent. By day 3, the whispers had evolved. How is she doing this? She's got to be on something. Nobody that size moves that efficiently without chemical help. She ignored it. All of it. Let them build their theories. Let them construct explanations that made sense to them. The truth would reveal itself eventually. It always did. On day 4, the drills shifted to tactical scenarios. Small unit movements, entry techniques, threat assessment under pressure. She was placed on a 4-person team with Garrett Mason and a contractor named Liu, who hadn't said a single word to her all week. The scenario was simple. Enter a structure, clear 3 rooms, extract a simulated hostage. Standard close-quarters battle. Nothing exotic. Garrett took point. Mason covered rear. Liu was middle. She was number 2. They stacked up outside the door. Garrett glanced back at her. "Stay behind me. Don't engage unless I signal. Don't touch anything unless I clear it. Understand?" She nodded. I said, "Do you understand?" "Yes." "Good." He breached the door. They flowed inside. The first room was clear. Second room had 2 simulated threats, paper targets on mechanical swings. Garrett engaged both. Clean shots. Professional. Third room was more complex. 3 targets, 2 friendlies, low light, tight angles. Garrett hesitated. Just for a second. But a second was enough. She moved past him, engaged all 3 threats. Center mass, controlled pairs. Both friendlies untouched. The instructor watching from the corner clicked his stopwatch. "Clear. Time 41 seconds. 0 friendly casualties. Well done." Garrett spun toward her. "I didn't give you the signal." "You hesitated. I didn't." "That's not how this works. I'm team leader. You follow my commands." "Your command was to stay behind you. I did. Until you stopped moving. Then I completed the objective." The instructor stepped in. "She's right." Team leader froze. Number 2 adapted. "That's exactly what should happen. Good instincts, Chen." Garrett's face went dark. "This is bullshit." "Is there a problem, Garrett?" "Yeah, she's showboating, making the rest of us look bad. Or maybe she's just good. Either way, the scenario's over. Reset and run it again." They ran it again. This time Garrett didn't hesitate, but his movements were aggressive, sloppy, rushed. He cleared the room faster, but he also flagged Liu twice and nearly shot a friendly. The instructor frowned. "What was that speed?" "That was recklessness. Run it again. Correctly this time." Garrett glared at her like this was her fault. Maybe it was. Maybe by being better she was forcing him to be worse. But that wasn't her problem. Her problem was completing the mission. And she'd just done that better than anyone else on the team. That night, she didn't go back to her room right away. She stayed in the facility gym, working through mobility drills, keeping her body ready. The room was empty, except for her. Until it wasn't. Garrett walked in at 21:30, then Mason, then Voss. She didn't stop stretching. "Need something?" Garrett crossed his arms. "Yeah, the truth." "About what?" "About who you are and why you're really here." "I already told you, I'm assigned to ICP. Nobody gets assigned to ICEP at 25. "I did." "Bullshit. There's something you're not telling us." She stood up slowly. There's a lot I'm not telling you. Because it's none of your business. It becomes our business when you start making us look incompetent. I'm not making you look like anything. You're doing that on your own. Voss stepped forward. You need to watch your mouth, little girl. Or what? Or you might find out why they call this a high-risk training environment? Is that a threat? It's a promise. She looked at all three of them, measured the distance, calculated the angles, assessed the threat level. Then she walked toward the door. Mason stepped in front of it. We're not done talking. Yes, we are. Move when we tell you to move. Move, or I'll move you. He laughed. You're going to move me, if I have to. Try it. She didn't, because Rodriguez walked in at that exact moment, clipboard in hand, eyes taking in the scene immediately. Problem, gentlemen. Garrett smiled. No, sir, just talking. Then talk somewhere else. Chen, you're with me. She followed him out. Behind her, she heard Mason mutter something. She didn't catch the words, but she caught the tone. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Rodriguez didn't speak until they were inside his office with the door closed. He set the clipboard down and leaned against his desk. How much longer are you planning to let this play out? As long as it takes to complete my assessment, sir. Your assessment is going to get you hurt. I can handle myself. I know you can. That's not what concerns me. He crossed his arms. What concerns me is what happens when they figure out they can't intimidate you through normal channels. Men like that don't accept defeat. They escalate. I'm aware. Are you? Because escalation in this environment doesn't mean harsh words. It means violence, real violence, the kind that puts people in hospitals. She met his eyes. I've been to war, sir. I know what violence looks like. War has rules of engagement, accountability, witnesses. What these three are planning won't have any of that. Then I'll adapt. He studied her for a long moment. You remind me of someone I used to know. Another operator who thought they could handle everything alone. Refused help, refused backup. You know where he is now? No, sir. Arlington, Section 60, Row 12. The words landed heavy. I'm not trying to be a martyr, sir. Neither was he. But he was so focused on proving he didn't need help that he didn't recognize when he was surrounded. Rodriguez pushed off the desk. I'm giving you 1 more week. After that, I'm revealing your actual status, whether you like it or not, because I'm not putting another name in Section 60 just to maintain operational security on an evaluation. Understood, sir. Good. Now get some rest. Tomorrow's advanced water ops. It's going to be a long day. She left his office and walked back toward instructor housing. The hallways were empty now. Most candidates were already in their racks recovering from the day's punishment. She should have been doing the same. Instead, she detoured through the facility's east corridor, past the administrative wing, past the armory toward the equipment bay, where gear was stored between training cycles. The lights were off. She flipped them on. Rows of tactical vests, helmets, rucksacks, and weapons cases lined the walls, everything organized by size and function. She found her assigned locker, checked the contents. Everything was where she'd left it that morning. Except for one thing. Her primary carabiner, the one she used for rappelling and water ops, had been loosened. Not completely detached. Just enough that under stress, under load, it might fail. She held it up to the light. The gate mechanism showed fresh scratches. Someone had tampered with it. Recently. Deliberately. She replaced it with a spare from the general supply bin, triple-checked the gate, and locked her locker with her personal combination instead of the facility-issued one. Then she walked back to her room, locked the door, wedged a chair under the handle, and slept for exactly 4 hours. At 05:30, her alarm went off. She was already awake. Day 5 began with water operations. Pool drills first, then open ocean. The facility had a 50-meter Olympic pool retrofitted with underwater obstacles, simulated wreckage, and low-visibility conditions. The kind of environment designed to trigger panic in anyone who wasn't properly trained. The candidates gathered poolside at 06:15. Maya was already there, gear-checked wetsuit on breathing controlled. Garrett saw her and smiled. Not friendly. Anticipatory. "Hope you can swim, little girl." "Well enough. We'll see." The instructor, a Navy dive supervisor named Chief Carver, explained the drill. Underwater navigation obstacle clearance, simulated equipment failure, buddy breathing with a partner who might or might not cooperate. Fail any segment, you restart from the beginning. Fail 3 times, you're removed from water ops for the rest of the program. Partner assignments are posted on the board. Grab your buddy and get in the water. Maya checked the board. Her partner was Voss. Of course it was. He walked over, already grinning. "Looks like we're buddies." "Looks like it." "You know what buddy breathing is?" "Yes." "Good. Because if you panic down there, I'm not risking my life to save you." "I won't panic." Everyone says that, until they're 15 feet down and realize they can't breathe. Chief Carver blew his whistle. "In the water, now!" They entered together. The water was cold, not hypothermic, but cold enough to shock the system if you weren't ready. Maya controlled her breathing, let her body adjust, focused on the task. The first segment was navigation. Follow a submerged rope through a series of obstacles without surfacing. Simple. She and Voss descended together, visibility limited to about 6 feet. The rope led them under a simulated hull through a narrow gap between 2 concrete blocks around a turn so tight it required full body rotation. Voss moved fast. Too fast. He reached the checkpoint first and waited, watching her struggle through the narrow gap. She didn't struggle. She rotated smoothly, exhaled to reduce her profile, and slipped through without touching the sides. His eyes narrowed behind his mask. The second segment was equipment failure. Halfway through the route, the instructor would signal and one partner's air supply would be cut. They'd have to share air with their buddy until they reached the surface checkpoint. They descended again, this time deeper, 20 feet. The rope led them through a submerged cage structure, simulating a ship's interior. Visibility dropped to 3 feet, then 2. The signal came. Voss's air cut off. He turned to her, hand out, demanding the regulator. She handed it over. He took 2 breaths. Then, instead of returning it, he held on to it. Took a 3rd breath. A 4th. Her lungs started burning. He watched her, waiting for panic, waiting for her to bolt to the surface. She didn't. She tapped his shoulder, pointed to the regulator. He shook his head, took another breath. Her vision started narrowing at the edges. Not from panic, from oxygen deprivation. She had maybe 20 seconds before she'd be forced to surface. She reached out, calmly gripped his wrist, applied pressure to the nerve cluster just below his thumb. His hand spasmed. The regulator dropped. She caught it, took 2 controlled breaths, handed it back. His eyes behind the mask were wide now. Not amused, not testing, surprised. They finished the segment together, surfaced at the checkpoint. Chief Carver was waiting. Time 3 minutes, 47 seconds. Acceptable. Voss, you held the regulator too long. That's not buddy breathing. That's hoarding. Do it again and you're out. Voss said nothing, just stared at her. She stared back. Ready for segment 3? Chief Carver asked. Yes, Chief, she said. Good, this one's blind navigation. Masks off. Follow the rope by touch. If you surface early, You fail. They descended a third time. No masks, no visibility. Just cold water burning lungs and a rope that could lead anywhere. She felt Voss move ahead of her, felt the rope shift and pull. Then suddenly it went slack. He'd let go. She stopped, felt along the line, found where it continued, followed it through another turn. Her lungs screamed for air. Her body screamed to surface. She ignored both. The rope ended at a platform. She felt for the marker, found it, gripped it tight, then kicked toward the surface. She broke through, gasping. Controlled gasps, but gasps nonetheless. Voss was already there. He'd surfaced 30 seconds earlier. Chief Carver looked at him. You let go of the rope. It slipped. Ropes don't slip. You let go. That's a failure. That's bullshit. The rope was fine. Chen completed the route. You didn't. Hit the showers. You're done with water ops today. Voss climbed out, dripping, furious. He walked past her without a word, but his shoulder clipped hers. Hard. Deliberate. She didn't react, just dried off and waited for her next assignment. By the time the water drills ended at 1100, she'd completed every segment. No failures. No restarts. Chief Carver pulled her aside. You've done this before. Some. Your buoyancy control is instructor level. Where'd you train to Coronado? His eyebrows went up. You're a SEAL. I didn't say that, Chief. You didn't have to. He looked at her differently now. Does Rodriguez know? Yes, Chief. Then why the hell are you running drills with candidates who don't know what they're dealing with? Because that's what I was told to do. He shook his head. You're either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both, Chief. Watch your back, Chen. Those three aren't going to let this go. I know. I'm serious. I've seen this before. Pride makes men dangerous. Humiliated pride makes them deadly. Noted, Chief? She walked away. Behind her, she heard him mutter, Kids these days have a death wish. Maybe he was right. Lunch was tense. The cafeteria had split into visible factions now. The candidates who didn't care about her presence. The candidates who were curious. And Garrett, Mason, and Voss sitting together at a corner table, talking low, glancing at her every 30 seconds. She ate quickly. Left before anyone could approach. The afternoon drill was land navigation. Teams of 4 15 miles full gear timed. Navigate to 3 checkpoints using map and compass only. No GPS. No phones, just terrain association and dead reckoning. Her team, Garrett, Mason, Voss, and her. Garrett was team leader again. He spread the map on the ground. First checkpoint is here, 6 miles northeast. We'll move fast, minimal breaks, maintain noise discipline. Questions? No one spoke. Good. Let's move. They moved. The terrain was brutal steep hills, dense brush, unstable footing. The kind of landscape that punished mistakes and rewarded precision. Garrett set a punishing pace. Faster than necessary. Faster than sustainable. After 2 miles, Mason was breathing hard. After 3, Voss was sweating through his shirt. She was fine. Garrett noticed. He pushed harder. 4 miles. 5. The first checkpoint appeared an orange flag tied to a tree. Garrett marked their time. 1 hour, 43 minutes. Not bad. Let's keep it up. He didn't call a break, just adjusted the route and started moving again. The second checkpoint was 8 miles from the first. The terrain got worse. Rocky slopes, creek crossings, thorn bushes that tore at exposed skin. Garrett kept pushing. Mason stumbled twice. Voss cursed under his breath. She stayed steady, one foot in front of the other, breathing controlled, pace measured. At mile 10, Mason stopped. "We need a break." "We don't have time," Garrett said. "I don't care. My knee is shot." "Then walk it off. I need 5 minutes." Garrett turned on him. "You need to toughen up. We're not stopping because you're soft." "I'm not soft. I'm injured." "You're fine." Maya stepped forward. "His knee is swelling. He needs to elevate it and ice it, or he's going to cause permanent damage." Garrett looked at her. "Did I ask for your input?" "No, but you're getting it anyway." "We don't stop. That's final." "Then you're a bad team leader." Silence. Mason and Voss both froze. Garrett walked toward her, slowly, deliberately. "What did you just say?" "I said you're a bad team leader. You're prioritizing ego over mission success. Mason's injured. If we push him, he'll fail. If he fails, the team fails. That's basic tactical decision-making." "Don't lecture me about tactics." "Then don't make stupid decisions." His fist clenched. For a second, she thought he might actually swing, but he didn't. Instead, he smiled. "Fine. We'll take a break. 5 minutes. But when we fail this drill because we ran out of time, it's on you." "We won't fail." "We'll see." They stopped. Mason elevated his knee. She used her water bottle to cool the swelling. Voss watched her expression unreadable. After exactly 5 minutes, Garrett stood. "Time's up. Let's move." Mason stood, tested his knee, nodded. They continued. The second checkpoint was another 3 miles. They reached it at hour 4:12, still within acceptable time. The third checkpoint was the farthest 12 miles total from start. The sun was setting, visibility dropping, terrain treacherous in the fading light. Garrett picked up the pace again. Reckless now. Angry. At mile 14, he took a wrong turn. She caught it immediately. "That's not the right direction." "Yes, it is." "No. The checkpoint is northeast. You're heading east." "I've been navigating since before you were born." "Then you should know better." He stopped walking, turned to face her. "If you're so smart, you lead." "I'm not team leader. You are." "That's right, I am. So shut up and follow." She looked at Mason and Voss. Neither said anything. "Fine," she said. "But when we miss the checkpoint, remember that I warned you." They walked another mile. The terrain didn't match the map. The landmarks were wrong. Garrett stopped, checked the compass, rechecked the map. "This doesn't make sense." "Because we're off course," she said. "We need to backtrack half a mile and adjust northwest." "I'm not backtracking." "Then we're going to fail this drill." "We're not." A whistle sounded in the distance. Time was up. The drill was over. Garrett swore. Loud. Vicious. "This is your fault. My fault you ignored my correction. Because you don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about. You're the one who got us lost." He stepped closer, inches from her face. "You cost us this drill." "No. Your ego cost us this drill." His hand shot out, grabbed her vest, shoved her backward. She didn't fall, just reset her stance. "Touch me again and you'll regret it." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact." Mason stepped between them. "Enough, both of you. Let's just get back to base." Garrett released her vest, but his eyes promised this wasn't over. They walked back in silence, arrived at 1947 hours. The other teams were already there. Most had completed all 3 checkpoints. The instructor, a Marine named Gunnery Sergeant Price, checked them in. "Where's your 3rd checkpoint marker?" "We didn't reach it," Garrett said. "Why not? Navigation error." "Whose error?" Garrett pointed at her. "Hers." Price looked at her. Is that accurate? No, Gunny. I provided a course correction at mile 14. Team leader rejected it. We continued on the wrong heading and ran out of time. Price looked at Garrett. Did she provide a correction? Silence. Did she provide a correction, Garrett? Yes. And you rejected it. I made a tactical decision. You made a bad decision. That's a team failure. All 4 of you restart the exercise tomorrow. Dismissed. Garrett walked away without looking at her. Mason and Voss followed. But this time the looks they gave her weren't angry. They were calculating. She showered, changed, went back to her room. Locked the door. Checked her phone. One message from Rodriguez. Heard about the nav failure. You okay? She typed back. Fine. They're going to escalate soon. I know. I can pull you out. Not yet. She set the phone down, checked her gear. Everything was secure. Everything was ready. Then she heard footsteps outside her door. Slow. Deliberate. Multiple sets. They stopped right outside. She moved to the side of the door, out of the line of sight from the peephole. A knock. Chen, open up, Garrett's voice. She didn't respond. We know you're in there. We just want to talk. Talk from there. This isn't a conversation for the hallway. Then it's not a conversation I'm interested in. Silence. Then Mason's voice. We're not leaving until you open this door. Then you're going to be standing there a long time. More silence. Then she heard metal on metal. Someone was picking the lock. She moved fast, grabbed her phone, sent one word to Rodriguez. Now! The lock clicked, the door started to open. She stepped back, centered her weight, controlled her breathing. Garrett entered first, then Mason, then Voss. They filled the small room, blocking the exit. This stops tonight, Garrett said. I agree, she replied. You're going to withdraw from the program tomorrow morning. You're going to tell Rodriguez it was your decision, no complaints, no incident reports, just a quiet exit. Or we make sure you leave on a stretcher. She looked at all 3 of them. You're threatening a fellow service member with assault. That's a court-martial offense. Voss laughed. Who's going to report at you with what proof? The recording I've been making since you picked my lock. She held up her phone. The screen showed a voice recorder app. Active. Running. All 3 of them froze. You're bluffing, Mason said. Am I? Garrett lunged, grabbed for the phone. She was faster, dropped low, swept his legs. He crashed into Mason. Both went down. Voss charged. She sidestepped, used his momentum, redirected him into the wall. He hit hard, grunted, turned. Garrett was up again, swung wild. She ducked, came up inside his guard, palm strike to the solar plexus. He doubled over. Mason tried to grab her from behind. She dropped her weight, twisted, threw him over her hip. He landed on the floor next to Garrett. Voss came at her again, smarter this time, controlled. She met him head-on, blocked his first strike, redirected his second, caught his third and used it to off-balance him. He stumbled. She swept his front leg. He went down. The door burst open. Rodriguez stood there with 2 security personnel and a camera. Nobody move. All 3 men froze. Rodriguez looked at her. You okay? Yes, sir. He looked at the 3 on the floor. You're all under arrest. Breaking and entering. Assault. Threatening a federal operator. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court-martial. Federal operator, Garrett said. Rodriguez looked at her. Show them. She pulled out her ID. The real one. The one that said Naval Special Warfare Development Group. Garrett's face went white. You're the evaluator, she finished. And you just assaulted a superior officer. On camera. Security pulled them to their feet, cuffed them, led them out. Rodriguez stayed. I told you they'd escalate. You did. You could have been seriously hurt. But I wasn't, he shook his head. You're either the bravest operator I've ever met or the craziest. Probably both, sir. He almost smiled. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. She closed the door after he left, sat on the bed. Her hands were shaking now, not from fear, from adrenaline finally releasing. She'd been kicked, threatened, assaulted, but she'd stood her ground. And tomorrow everyone would know exactly who she was. The game was over. Now came the reckoning. She didn't sleep that night. Not because she couldn't. Because she knew what morning would bring. The facility would wake up to an emergency formation. Questions would be asked. Answers would be demanded. And 3 men would learn exactly how badly they'd miscalculated. At 0530, her phone buzzed. Formation at 0600. Full facility. Be ready. Rodriguez. Always precise. She dressed in her service uniform. Not the training fatigues she'd worn all week. The real one. Pressed. Decorated. Ribbons that told a story most people wouldn't believe. Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal. 2 of them. Combat Action Ribbon. Presidential Unit Citation. And at the top, small but unmistakable, the trident. The SEAL insignia that took most operators 5 years to earn. She'd earned it in 3. At 0557, she walked across the facility yard. Candidates were already gathering. Confused? Worried. Nobody called an emergency formation unless something serious had happened. She saw Simmons, the contractor who'd been professional during combatives. He nodded at her. She nodded back. Liu, the quiet one from Garrett's tactical team, stood near the edge. He watched her approach, but didn't speak. At exactly 600, Rodriguez emerged from the command building. Behind him walked 2 Naval Criminal Investigative Service agents in suits. Behind them, 3 military police officers. The formation went silent. Rodriguez stood at the front. At approximately 2130 hours last night, 3 instructor candidates violated multiple articles of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. They broke into another candidate's quarters. They threatened violence. They attempted to coerce withdrawal from this program through intimidation. And when their threats were rejected, they assaulted a fellow service member. Murmurs rippled through the formation. Heads turned. Everyone looking for the victim. Most eyes landed on her. Rodriguez continued. Those 3 candidates are currently in custody awaiting formal charges. Their names are Garrett Mason and Voss. As of this moment, they are no longer part of this program. They will never be part of any program under Naval Special Warfare Command again. More murmurs. Louder now. But that's not why I called this formation. Rodriguez paused, looked directly at her. The person they assaulted wasn't a candidate. She's an evaluator, and not just any evaluator. Chen, front and center. She walked forward. Every eye on her now. Confusion on most faces. Recognition on a few. Rodriguez gestured to the NCIS agents. Special Agent Chen has been operating undercover in this facility for the past 5 days. Her mission was to assess program culture, instructor candidate quality, and facility responsiveness to irregular situations. She holds the rank of Special Operations First Class. She is instructor qualified in multiple disciplines. And she is the youngest female Navy SEAL in the history of naval special warfare. The silence that followed was absolute. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. 53 men stood frozen, processing information that didn't fit the narrative they'd built in their heads. Rodriguez kept going. Some of you treated her with respect. You'll be noted positively in her report. Some of you treated her with professional distance. That's acceptable. And some of you treated her with hostility, mockery, and prejudice. Those individuals should start considering their career options outside of special operations. He looked at the formation. Questions? A hand went up. Marine older, with the weathered look of someone who'd been deployed more times than he could count. Sir, how old is she? 25. And she's been a SEAL since when? Rodriguez looked at her. She answered. I graduated BUD/YES at 21, completed SEAL qualification training at 22, made first class at 24. Another hand. Navy contractor background. How many deployments? 3 combat rotations, 2 in CENTCOM, 1 in AFRICOM. What was your Hell Week class number? She told him. His eyes widened. I know someone from that class. He said it was one of the hardest in 10 years. Hypothermia cases. 2 medical drops. 1 candidate completed with bilateral stress fractures in both tibias, she finished. That was me. The Marine whistled low. You finished Hell Week on broken legs. They weren't broken, just fractured. That's the same thing. No, broken means surgery. Fractured means pain management and determination. Someone in the back laughed, not mocking, impressed. Rodriguez held up a hand. Chen's credentials are not up for debate. They've been verified at the highest levels. What is up for debate is how this facility responded to her presence, and from what I've observed, we failed. Badly. He pulled out a tablet. Over the past 5 days, Chen documented 47 instances of gender-based harassment, 23 instances of age discrimination, 12 instances of training equipment sabotage, and 3 direct threats of violence. All of this happened under our watch, in our facility, by candidates we supposedly vetted. The formation shifted uncomfortably. This stops now. As of today, this program is under review. New protocols will be implemented. New standards will be enforced. And anyone who can't handle training alongside female operators needs to leave. Because the future of special operations is integrated, and if you can't adapt, you'll be left behind. He closed the tablet. Chen will continue her evaluation for another 3 weeks. She will observe, she will document, and she will have my full support. If anyone has a problem with that, my office is open. Dismissed. The formation broke, but nobody moved far. They stood in clusters, talking low, glancing at her. She walked back toward the instructor wing. Simmons caught up to her. I owe you an apology. She stopped. For what? For not saying anything. I saw how they treated you. I should have stepped in. You treated me with respect during drills. That's enough. It's not. I let it happen by staying silent. She looked at him. You didn't let anything happen. They made their choices. You made yours. The only person responsible for their actions is them. He nodded slowly. For what it's worth, that water drill with Voss, I was watching. He tried to drown you. I know. And you still finished the segment. That was the mission. Most people would have surfaced, filed a complaint, gotten him removed. I'm not most people. Yeah. He smiled slightly. I'm starting to figure that out. He walked away. Others approached. Some apologetic. Some curious. Some angry that they'd been deceived. A Navy contractor named Patterson stopped her. You lied to us. I didn't lie. I just didn't correct your assumptions. That's the same thing. No. Lying is actively providing false information. I provided no information. You filled in the blanks yourself. That's a bullshit distinction. Maybe, but it's an accurate one. So what you were testing us, I was observing you. There's a difference. And what did you observe? She looked at him. That some people see a woman and assume incompetence. That some people see youth and assume inexperience. And that very few people bother to challenge their assumptions before acting on them. That's not fair. Fair doesn't matter. Accurate does. And everything I just said is accurate. He opened his mouth, closed it, walked away. Liu approached next. He'd been silent all week. Silent during drills. Silent during breaks. Silent even when Garrett had mocked her openly. "You knew," she said. He blinked. "Knew what? That I wasn't a regular candidate. You figured it out early." "How did you?" "Because you never engaged, never mocked, never tested. You just watched. That's not normal candidate behavior. That's assessment behavior." He smiled slightly. "I spent 6 years with Marine Force Recon. I know what an evaluator looks like." "Then why didn't you say anything?" "Because it wasn't my place. You were there for a reason. I respected that." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. I did the bare minimum. I should have shut Garrett down the first time he opened his mouth." "Why didn't you?" "Because I'm a coward." The honesty surprised her. "You're not a coward. You're cautious. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes, a coward runs from danger. A cautious person calculates risk. You calculated that intervening would cost you more than staying silent. That's not cowardice. That's survival." He studied her. "You really believe that?" "I do. Even after what they did to you. Especially after what they did to me. Because now everyone knows. And the ones who stayed silent are questioning themselves. That questioning will change behavior. That's how culture shifts." Liu nodded slowly. "You're either very wise or very naive." "Probably both," he laughed. First time she'd heard him laugh all week. "Good luck with the rest of your evaluation, ma'am." "It's just Chen. We're the same rank." "No, ma'am, we're not." He walked away. By 0800, the entire facility had heard. Kitchen staff, admin, contractors. Everyone. Some looked at her with respect, some with suspicion, some with outright hostility. She didn't care. She had a job to do. Rodriguez found her at 0900. "How are you holding up?" "Fine." "Liar." She almost smiled. "I'm functional. That's what matters." "Functional isn't the same as fine." "It is in this job." He sighed. "The NCIS agents want a formal statement. They'll need you at 1100. "Understood." "And the 3 suspects are requesting to speak with you." That surprised her. "Why, they want to apologize." "No." "Chen, no sir. They don't want to apologize. They want to negotiate. They want me to soften my statement or drop charges. I won't do either." They're facing court-martials. Their careers are over. Maybe they genuinely want to make amends. Their careers are over because they assaulted a superior officer. That's not my fault. That's theirs. And I'm not interested in making them feel better about the consequences of their own actions. Rodriguez studied her. "You're hard." "I'm fair. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes, hard means inflexible. Fair means proportional. They made a choice. Now they face the proportional consequence. That's not hard. That's justice." He nodded. "All right. I'll tell them you declined." "Thank you, sir." "One more thing." "Sir, the program. What's your assessment?" She'd been waiting for this question. "Facility infrastructure is excellent. Training protocols are sound. Equipment is maintained properly. But the culture is toxic. Candidates are allowed to self-police with no oversight. Harassment goes unchecked. And the assumption that aggression equals leadership is baked into every interaction. Solutions: mandatory bias training, zero-tolerance harassment policy with teeth, Integrated training teams from day one, and evaluators embedded in every cycle, not just when problems are suspected. That's going to be expensive. So is defending lawsuits and replacing operators who quit because of hostile work environments. He smiled slightly. You sound like a policymaker. I sound like someone who's tired of proving I belong every single day. Fair enough. He checked his watch. NCIS is waiting. Let's get this done. The statement took 2 hours. Every detail, every threat, every moment of the assault. The agents recorded everything, took photos of her bruised wrist where Mason had grabbed her during combatives, documented the tampering with her carabiner, built a case that would be impossible to defend against. When it was done, the lead agent, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and sharper questions, leaned back. This is going to trial. You know that. Yes, ma'am. You'll be called to testify. I understand. It's going to be ugly. Defense will argue you entrapped them, that you provoked the assault, that your undercover status invalidates any claim to victimhood. Let them argue. The evidence speaks for itself. Evidence doesn't always win cases. Narrative does. And their narrative will be that you're a young, ambitious operator trying to make a name for yourself by taking down 3 decorated veterans. Then my narrative will be that 3 decorated veterans committed a felony because they couldn't handle being outperformed by someone they deemed inferior. The agent smiled. Good. Hold on to that. You'll need it. By 1400, Maya was back in the training yard. Rodriguez had announced that normal operations would resume. Drills would continue. Evaluations would proceed. And anyone who couldn't focus should withdraw now. Nobody withdrew. The afternoon drill was close quarters combat. Full contact. Protective gear required but not guaranteed to prevent injury. The kind of training that separated people who could fight from people who just talked about it. She was paired with a contractor named Ellis, former Army Ranger, respectful during the morning formation. Professional now. They squared up. I won't go easy on you, he said. I don't want you to. Fair enough. He came at her fast. Jab, cross hook. She slipped the first 2, blocked the third, countered with a body shot that made him grunt. He reset. Came again. Leg kick, elbow, knee. She checked the kick, ducked the elbow, caught the knee, and swept his base leg. He went down, got up, smiling. You're fast. You're predictable. Ouch. They reset. This time he was less aggressive, more technical. Feints, angles, setups. Better. She matched him. Strike for strike, block for block. They went 3 rounds. He won 1. She won 2. The third was a draw. The instructor called time. Good work, both of you. That's what I want to see. Technical. Controlled. Respectful. Ellis offered his hand. She shook it. Where'd you learn to fight like that? Everywhere. Every deployment. Every gym. Every operator who was willing to teach me something new. Well, whoever taught you did a good job. Thanks. He walked away. Others rotated in. She fought 6 more rounds. Won 4. Lost 2. Every match clean. Every match respectful. By the time drills ended at 1700, her body was exhausted, but her mind was clear. Rodriguez found her in the locker room. The word came down from Warcom. They want you to finish the full evaluation. All 4 weeks. That's 3 more weeks. I know. Can you do it? Do I have a choice? There's always a choice, but I'm asking if you're willing. She looked at him. Will it change anything? The culture here, if you do your job right. Yes. It'll force changes that should have happened years ago. Then I'm willing. Good. Because I need you to do something else. What? Teach a class. That surprised her. On what? On bias, on assumptions, on what it's like to operate in a field that doesn't want you. You want me to stand in front of 50 hostile candidates and tell them they're wrong? No. I want you to stand in front of 50 curious candidates and show them a different perspective. Some of them are hostile, but most of them are just ignorant. They don't know what they don't know. You can change that. I'm not a teacher. You're instructor qualified. That makes you a teacher. That's different. How teaching tactics is objective. Teaching perspective is subjective. Maybe, but it's still teaching, and you're good at it. She wanted to refuse, wanted to say this wasn't her job, but she knew he was right. When, tomorrow, 0800, 1 hour, say whatever you think they need to hear. What if they don't want to listen? Then you'll know who to eliminate from your final report. She nodded. I'll do it. Thank you. That night she prepared. Not by writing a speech, by remembering. Every moment she'd been dismissed. Every time someone had assumed she couldn't do something because of her gender or her age. Every deployment where she'd had to prove herself twice as hard to earn half the respect. She remembered Hell Week. The instructor who'd told her she'd never make it past the first night. The classmate who'd offered to carry her pack because he assumed she was too weak. The officer who'd suggested she drop before she embarrassed herself. She remembered proving them all wrong. At 0730 the next morning, she walked into the classroom. 53 candidates sat waiting. Some looked curious. Some looked skeptical. Some looked angry. Rodriguez introduced her. This is Special Operations First Class Chen. She's going to talk to you about perspective. Listen. Learn. And if you have questions, ask them respectfully. Chen, the floor is yours. She stood at the front. No notes, no slides. Just her and her truth. 5 days ago, I walked into this facility and you made assumptions about me. You assumed I was too young, too small, too inexperienced. Some of you assumed I was someone's daughter using connections. Some assumed I was a diversity hire. Some assumed I didn't belong. She paused. You were wrong, all of you, but that's not why I'm here. Someone in the back shifted uncomfortably. I'm here because assumptions are dangerous. In training, they're embarrassing. In combat, they're fatal. If you assume your enemy is weak because they're small, you die. If you assume your teammate is incompetent because they're different, you fail. If you assume you know everything, you learn nothing. A hand went up. The Marine who'd asked about Hell Week. So what are we supposed to do? Not trust our instincts? No, trust your instincts, but verify them. I walked in here and you made judgments in 3 seconds. That's fine. That's human nature. But then you never adjusted those judgments even when evidence contradicted them. That's not instinct. That's stubbornness. Another hand. Navy contractor. How are we supposed to know you were qualified? You didn't tell us. I didn't have to. My actions told you. I kept pace. I finished drills. I performed at the top of every evaluation. That should have been enough. But you were hiding who you really were. I wasn't hiding. I was observing. And what I observed was that most of you made decisions about my capability before you saw me do anything. That's bias. And bias gets people killed. Patterson, the one who'd called her a liar, stood up. So what, we're all supposed to apologize? Pretend like we didn't have legitimate concerns. What were your legitimate concerns? That you'd slow us down. That you'd get hurt. That we'd have to protect you instead of focusing on the mission. And did any of that happen? Silence. Did I slow you down? No. Did I get hurt? Not during drills. Did anyone have to protect me? He sat down. No. Then your concerns weren't legitimate. They were assumptions. And I'm not asking you to apologize. I'm asking you to think. Because the next time you make assumptions about someone's capability based on how they look, you might be wrong. And in combat, being wrong isn't embarrassing. It's deadly. Ellis raised his hand. "What do you want from us?" "I want you to give people a chance. Judge them on their actions, not your assumptions. Respect their capability until they prove otherwise. And if they fail, let them fail because they weren't good enough, not because you didn't give them the chance to succeed." She looked around the room. "That's it. That's the whole lesson. Any questions?" A dozen hands went up. For the next hour, she answered everything. How she got through Bud S., what Hell Week was really like, how she handled being the only woman in every room. What advice she'd give to someone facing similar challenges. She didn't sugarcoat anything, didn't pretend it was easy, didn't claim she had all the answers. She just told the truth. When the hour ended, Rodriguez stood. "Thank you, Chen. Dismissed." The candidates filed out. Some nodded to her. Some avoided eye contact. But Liu stopped. That took guts. It took honesty. Same thing sometimes. He left. The room emptied. Rodriguez approached. "That was good. Really good. It was necessary. Both things can be true." He handed her a folder. "The preliminary hearing for Garrett Mason and Voss is scheduled for next week. Jag wants you there." "I'll be there." "And Chen." "Sir. What you did in there, that's leadership. Not the loud kind. The important kind." She took the folder. "Thank you, sir." She walked out into the California sun. The facility looked the same as it had 5 days ago, but everything had changed. They knew who she was now, and there was no going back. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 0900 on a Tuesday morning in a stark military courtroom that smelled like furniture polish and stale coffee. Maya arrived 30 minutes early wearing her service dress blues, every ribbon aligned perfectly, trident gleaming under fluorescent lights that made everything look colder than it was. The JAG prosecutor, a Navy lieutenant commander named Reeves with gray at his temples, and a handshake that meant business, met her in the hallway. "They're going to try to break you on the stand." "I know. I mean really break you. Their defense attorney is Captain Morrison, former SEAL himself. He knows every trick in the book, and he's not afraid to use them." "What's his angle?" "That you provoked the assault. That going undercover was entrapment. That 3 decorated combat veterans with spotless records suddenly became violent criminals because you manipulated them into it." "That's absurd." "That's defense strategy. He'll make you the villain. Make them the victims. And if he's good enough, the panel might believe him." "What do you need from me?" "The truth. Just the truth. Don't embellish. Don't get emotional. Don't let him make you angry. Answer every question directly and let the facts speak for themselves." "I can do that. I hope so. Because if we lose this preliminary, they walk, and everything you went through means nothing." The courtroom filled slowly. Rodriguez sat in the back. Liu came in, nodded at her, took a seat near the middle. Ellis and Simmons arrived together. Even Patterson showed up, though he sat as far from everyone else as possible. At 0855, the 3 defendants entered in dress uniforms flanked by MPs. No handcuffs, no shackles, just 3 men who looked more angry than remorseful. Garrett's eyes found hers immediately. She didn't look away. The military judge, a Marine Corps colonel with a face that suggested he'd seen everything twice and been unimpressed both times, entered at precisely 0900. "All rise." Everyone stood. "This preliminary hearing will determine if sufficient evidence exists to proceed to court-martial for the defendants Garrett Mason and Voss on charges of breaking and entering assault on a superior officer and conduct unbecoming. Prosecution, call your first witness." Reeves stood. "The United States calls Special Operations First Class Maya Chen." She walked to the witness stand, was sworn in, sat down. Reeves started with easy questions. Her name, her rank, her duty station. how long she'd been at the facility, why she was there. And during your evaluation, did you have any interactions with the defendants? Yes, sir, multiple. Describe the first significant interaction. She did. The formation, the dismissals, the comment about being someone's daughter. Garrett's face tightened, but he said nothing. And how did you respond? I didn't. I completed the task I was assigned. You didn't file a complaint? No, sir. Verbal harassment is common in training environments. I was there to observe culture, not change individual behavior in real time. What about subsequent interactions? She walked through the water drill. Voss withholding the regulator. The land navigation failure. Mason's deliberately rough handling during combatives. And at any point did you retaliate? No, sir. I defended myself when physically engaged, but I never initiated aggression. Why not? Because my mission was observation. Retaliation would have compromised that mission. Reeves nodded. Tell the court about the night of the assault. She did. Every detail. The footsteps. The lock being picked. The 3 men entering her room. The threats. The attempted phone grab. The fight. And during this fight, did you fear for your safety? No, sir. That clearly surprised him. No, sir. I knew I could defend myself. What I feared was that they'd succeed in forcing me to withdraw, that they'd intimidate me into silence, that their actions would go unreported and unpunished. But you didn't stay silent. No, sir, because silence enables abuse, and I won't enable abuse. Thank you. No further questions. Captain Morrison stood. He was tall, fit, with the kind of confidence that came from winning more cases than he'd lost. He smiled at her. Not friendly. Tactical. First Class Chen. May I call you Maya? You may call me by my rank, sir. Of course. First Class Chen. You testified that you were at the facility undercover. Is that correct? Yes, sir. And during this undercover operation, you deliberately concealed your true identity from the candidates. I operated under my real name and rank. I didn't volunteer additional information about my assignment, but I didn't lie. Didn't you? When candidates asked if you belonged there, what did you say? I said I was assigned to ICP. That was true. But misleading. You let them believe you were a candidate when you were actually an evaluator. I let them make their own assumptions. I didn't correct those assumptions because doing so would have compromised my mission. So you admit you were deceptive. I admit I didn't volunteer information that wasn't requested. That's not deception, that's operational security. Morrison smiled wider. Let's talk about operational security. You were inserted into a training environment without the knowledge or consent of the participants. You observed them, documented them, built a case against them, all while they believed you were their peer. Doesn't that strike you as entrapment? No, sir. Entrapment requires inducing someone to commit a crime they wouldn't otherwise commit. I didn't induce anything. I simply existed. Their actions were their choice. But your presence provoked those actions. My presence revealed their character. There's a difference. Is there? Because it seems to me that 3 decorated veterans with unblemished service records suddenly became violent criminals the moment you arrived. Coincidence. Not coincidence. Causation. They became violent when someone they deemed inferior proved to be their superior. Morrison's smile faded slightly. You believe you're superior to them. In performance. During that week, yes. The drill results prove it. And that didn't bother you outperforming men with decades more experience. Why would it bother me? Performance is performance. Age and experience don't guarantee competence. But surely you understood how they might feel. Embarrassed, humiliated, emasculated by a woman half their age. Reeves stood. Objection. The witness isn't responsible for the defendant's emotional responses to their own inadequacy. The judge looked at Morrison. Sustained. Rephrase. Morrison nodded. Let me ask it differently. Did you ever consider that your presence might create tension? Of course. That was part of the evaluation. How candidates responded to tension reveals character. So you deliberately created a hostile environment. No, sir. I performed my assigned duties. They created the hostile environment through their response to my performance. But you knew they'd respond negatively. I suspected some might. I didn't know which ones. That's why the evaluation was necessary. Morrison walked closer to the witness stand. Let's talk about the night of the assault. You testified that the defendants entered your room uninvited. They picked the lock and entered after I refused to open the door. That's breaking and entering. You also testified that you recorded the encounter. Yes, sir. When did you start recording? When I heard footsteps outside my door. So you anticipated trouble? I anticipated a confrontation, yes. And instead of calling security, you recorded it. Why? Because I needed documentation. Verbal reports can be disputed. Video and audio cannot. Or maybe you wanted to provoke an assault so you could document it and destroy their careers. The courtroom went silent. Maya looked at Morrison for a long moment. Sir, if I wanted to destroy their careers, I could have done it after the first harassment incident, or the equipment sabotage, or the water drill where Voss attempted to drown me. I didn't. I gave them every opportunity to course correct. They chose escalation. That's on them, not me. But you didn't report any of those incidents. Because my mission was to observe facility culture, not police individual behavior. Convenient. You let them dig their own graves. I let them make their own choices. Every person in this courtroom makes choices every day. They chose violence. I chose documentation. Those aren't equivalent. Morrison walked back to his table, picked up a folder. I have testimony from 12 candidates who say you were deliberately provocative during training, that you showed off, that you made them look bad on purpose. Then they're lying, or they're projecting their insecurity onto my competence. You don't think there's any truth to it? I think men who are used to being the best in the room don't know how to handle being second best, especially when the person beating them doesn't look like they expected. So this is about sexism. This is about fragile egos and poor impulse control. Isn't it true that you could have de-escalated the situation at any time by revealing your true identity and compromise the integrity of the evaluation? No. So you valued the evaluation over your own safety. I valued the mission. That's what operators do. Morrison set the folder down. One more question, First Class Chen. If you had to do it again, would you change anything? She didn't hesitate. No, sir, because changing my behavior to accommodate their prejudice enables that prejudice, and I won't do that. Not for them. Not for anyone. Even if it meant avoiding this entire situation, even then, because this situation was inevitable. If not me, then the next woman. If not this facility, then the next one. Someone had to stand their ground. It happened to be me. Morrison looked at her for a long moment. No further questions. She stepped down. Rodriguez was smiling slightly. Reeves looked satisfied. The judge called a recess. In the hallway, Reeves pulled her aside. That was perfect. You stayed calm. You didn't get defensive. You made them look exactly like what they are. Will it be enough? I think so. But Morrison's going to call character witnesses. People who will testify that the defendants are good men who made one mistake. One mistake that involved breaking into someone's quarters and assaulting them. I know. But juries, even military panels, are sympathetic to veterans, especially SEALs. The narrative of the hero fallen from grace plays well. So what do? We present evidence. We show patterns. We prove this wasn't one mistake. It was the culmination of a week of escalating aggression. When the hearing resumed, Morrison called his first witness. Master Chief Petty Officer William Strand. Retired SEAL. 28 years of service. Instructor at 3 different training commands. He testified that Garrett had been an exemplary student, professional, disciplined. Never a hint of violence or misconduct. Reeves cross-examined. Master Chief, when did you last work with Garrett? 12 years ago. And in those 12 years, did you maintain regular contact? No, we spoke occasionally. So you can't testify to his character over the past decade. I can testify to the character I observed during his training. But people change. Isn't that possible? Anything's possible. But I don't believe he changed. Based on what? Based on the man I knew. The man you knew 12 years ago. Strand hesitated. Yes. Thank you. No further questions. Morrison called 2 more character witnesses. Both told similar stories. Garrett, the professional, Mason, the team player, Voss, the reliable operator. None of them had worked with any of the defendants in the past 5 years. Reeves shredded each one on cross-examination. Finally, Morrison called Garrett himself to the stand. The courtroom tensed. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. Garrett was sworn in, sat down, looked directly at the panel. Morrison started gently. Chief Garrett, tell the court about your service record. Garrett did. 14 years. Multiple deployments. Bronze Star with Valor. Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal. Purple Heart. It was impressive. And during those 14 years, how many disciplinary actions were filed against you? None. How many complaints? None. How many incidents of violence outside of combat? None. Morrison nodded. So by all accounts, you're a model sailor, a professional, someone who understands discipline and chain of command. Yes, sir. Then explain to the court how someone with your record ended up charged with assault. Garrett took a breath. I made a mistake. I let my emotions override my judgment. I felt threatened by someone I didn't understand, and I responded inappropriately. What do you mean by threatened? I mean she was better than me. Faster, stronger, more controlled, and I couldn't accept it. Because I'd built my identity around being the best. And when someone smaller, younger, and female proved they were better, my ego couldn't handle it. The courtroom went absolutely silent. Morrison looked surprised. This clearly wasn't the testimony he'd prepared. Chief Garrett, are you saying you assaulted First Class Chen because she was better than you? Yes, sir. That's exactly what I'm saying. And you understand that's not a defense. I'm not offering a defense. I'm offering an explanation. What I did was wrong, illegal, unforgivable. And I don't expect leniency. I expect consequences. Morrison looked like he wanted to strangle his own client. Chief Garrett, we've prepared a defense. I don't want a defense, sir. I want accountability. Because the truth is, I spent that entire week trying to break her. I sabotaged her equipment. I ignored her input. I let Voss try to drown her during the water drill. And when none of that worked, I broke into her room with the intention of forcing her out through intimidation. He looked at Maya. I'm sorry, that's inadequate. But it's true. You didn't deserve any of what we put you through. And the fact that you're sitting here with your career intact while mine is over, that's justice. That's what should happen. Morrison sat down heavily. Reeves stood. Chief Garrett, you mentioned sabotaging equipment. Can you elaborate? I loosened the carabiner in her locker. I thought if her equipment failed during a drill, it would prove she wasn't ready, that she was a liability. And the water drill, I told Voss to test her, to push her limits. I didn't explicitly tell him to withhold the regulator, but I implied that proving she couldn't handle stress would be valuable. So you conspired to create dangerous situations? Yes, sir. We all did. Mason, Voss, me. We wanted her gone, and we were willing to risk her safety to make it happen. Why? Because we were scared. Not of her, of what she represented. Change. Evolution. The end of the era, where we could assume we were the best just because of our gender and our experience. She proved that era is over, and instead of adapting, we attacked. Thank you, Chief Garrett. No further questions. The judge called another recess. In the hallway, Rodriguez found Maya. Did you expect that? No. He just confessed to everything. I know. Morrison's going to withdraw his counsel. Garrett sabotaged his own defense. Maybe that's what he wanted. Why would he want a court-martial? Because guilt is heavier than punishment. He couldn't live with what he did, so he chose accountability over acquittal. Rodriguez studied her. You respect him for that. I respect honesty, even when it comes too late. When the hearing resumed, Morrison formally withdrew. A new JAG attorney was assigned, but the damage was done. Garrett had confessed. Mason and Voss's cases crumbled by association. The judge reconvened the panel. They deliberated for 18 minutes. Guilty on all charges. Sentencing would come later, but the outcome was certain. Dishonorable discharge, forfeiture of benefits, prison time. Outside the courtroom, reporters waited. Maya walked past them without speaking. Rodriguez fielded questions while she made it to his truck. They drove in silence for 3 miles. Finally, he spoke. How do you feel? Tired. Understandable. And angry. At them. At the system that created them. That told them for years that aggression was strength. That dominance was leadership. That anyone different was a threat. The system is changing. Not fast enough. He pulled into the facility parking lot. Your evaluation ends in 2 weeks. What happens after? I go back to my unit. And then, I keep doing the job. Keep proving I belong. Keep hoping that one day I won't have to. That day is coming. Is it because it feels like every step forward comes with a fight? Every victory requires someone getting hurt. I'm tired of fighting. Then stop. She looked at him. Stop fighting. Stop fighting alone. Accept help. Build alliances. Let other people carry some of the weight. I don't know how to do that. Learn, because this lone wolf approach is going to burn you out, and we can't afford to lose you. She nodded slowly. I'll try. Good. Now get some rest. Tomorrow we start preparing for the cultural reform recommendations, and I'm going to need your input on every single policy change. Sir, I'm not a policy expert. No, you're better. You're someone who's lived the consequences of bad policy. That's more valuable than any expert opinion. She climbed out of the truck, walked toward her quarters. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lou. Heard about the hearing. You okay? She typed back. Yeah. Need anything? No, but thank you. Anytime. She pocketed the phone, unlocked her door. Inside, everything was exactly as she'd left it, except for a note slipped under the door. She picked it up. Thank you for not giving up. You showed us what real strength looks like. Ellis Simmons and 23 others. She set the note on her desk, sat on the bed, let herself feel everything she'd been holding back. Relief. Exhaustion. Sadness. Hope. The fight was over. The war continued. But for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was fighting it alone. 3 months passed before Maya returned to the facility. The court-martials had concluded. Garrett received 4 years in military prison and a dishonorable discharge. Mason got 3 years. Voss got 5 because of the attempted drowning. Their appeals were denied. Their names were erased from every SEAL memorial wall and unit roster. They ceased to exist in the community they'd spent their lives serving. Maya hadn't thought about them much. Since the trial, she'd been too busy implementing the changes her evaluation had recommended. New harassment protocols, mandatory bias training, integrated teams from day one, anonymous reporting systems with real teeth. Warcom had adopted every single recommendation. Now she was back to see if any of it had actually worked. Rodriguez met her at the gate. He looked older somehow, more tired, but also more hopeful. "Welcome back." "Thank you, sir. The candidates don't know you're coming. I thought it would be better if you observed naturally." "Good call." They walked through the facility. It looked the same, smelled the same, but something felt different. In the training yard, she saw them immediately. The new class. 63 candidates this time, and 12 of them were women. She stopped walking. Rodriguez smiled. Surprised, very. "We opened applications to female candidates 3 weeks after your evaluation concluded. We got 200 applications, accepted 15. 3 dropped during the first week. These 12 are still here. How are they performing? See for yourself." A drill was in progress. Obstacle course, full gear, timed. She watched a woman who couldn't have been more than 22 attack the rope climb with perfect technique. Watched another clear the wall faster than most of the men. Watched a third help a male teammate who'd stumbled on the tire run. Nobody mocked them. Nobody questioned their presence. They were just candidates. Good ones. "What changed?" she asked. "Everything. We fired 3 instructors who couldn't adapt. We brought in new ones who could. We made it clear from day one that harassment would result in immediate removal. No warnings, no second chances. And we assigned female instructors to every training block. Female instructors from where? From everywhere. Army, Air Force, Marines. We pulled the best female operators from every branch and gave them instructor billets here. Now, when candidates show up, they see women in positions of authority from the moment they walk through the gate." Maya watched another woman complete the course. Time, 4 minutes, 12 seconds. Top 10 overall. "It's working." It is, but it's not perfect. We still have problems. Still have candidates who can't let go of their biases. Still have moments where someone says something stupid and we have to intervene. But you're intervening. Yes, because of you. Because you proved that silence enables abuse. Now we don't stay silent. A voice called from behind them. "Chen, is that you?" She turned. Leo stood there in instructor fatigues, whistle around his neck, clipboard in hand. "Liu, you're an instructor now." "As of 6 weeks ago, Rodriguez offered me a position and I accepted." "He's one of the best we have," Rodriguez said. "The candidates respect him. The female candidates trust him. That's rare." Leo smiled slightly. "I learned from the best." "I didn't teach you anything." "Yes, you did. You taught me that standing by is the same as standing with. I won't make that mistake again." Another instructor approached. Female. Navy. Older than Maya, but younger than Rodriguez. Her name tape said, Foster. "Commander Rodriguez, we're ready for the combat eval whenever you are." Rodriguez nodded. "Give us 5 minutes?" Foster looked at Maya. Recognition flickered. "You're Chen." "Yes, ma'am." "I read your evaluation report. 3 times. It changed how I teach, how I lead, how I think about what we're doing here." "I'm glad it helped." "Helped it revolutionize this program. Before your report, we were training operators the same way we had for 50 years. After your report, we had to admit that 50 years of tradition doesn't excuse toxic culture. That was uncomfortable, but necessary. She extended her hand. Maya shook it. Thank you for your service. And your sacrifice. I didn't sacrifice anything. Yes, you did. You sacrificed your anonymity, your safety, your peace, so that the women who came after you wouldn't have to. That's sacrifice. Foster walked away. Maya stood silent. Rodriguez put a hand on her shoulder. She's right, you know. I was just doing my job. Your job was to evaluate the program. You did that. But what you actually did was change the entire culture of special operations training. That's bigger than a job. That's legacy. I don't want a legacy. I just want to do the work. Then you're going to be disappointed. Because whether you want it or not, you have a legacy. Every woman who walks through that gate walks a path you cleared. That's legacy. She looked at the 12 women training in the yard. One of them stumbled on the rope climb, fell, got up immediately, tried again. What's her name? Carson, Army, Ranger qualified, trying for SEAL pipeline. Will she make it? I don't know, but I know she'll get a fair shot. Because of you. Maya walked closer to the fence. Carson made it to the top of the rope on her second attempt. Rang the bell, dropped down. Her teammates, male and female, cheered. One of the male candidates offered her water. She took it. They talked for a moment, laughed about something, then reset for the next drill. No hostility, no resentment, just camaraderie. It's different, Maya said quietly. It is, but different doesn't mean easy. Carson failed her first navigation drill, got lost, missed 2 checkpoints. You know what happened? What? Her team leader, a male candidate, stayed with her, helped her recalibrate. They finished together. Both failed the time standard. Both had to rerun it the next day. But he didn't leave her behind. That wouldn't have happened before. No, it wouldn't have. Before, he would have blamed her, made her the reason for the failure. Now he treats her like a teammate. Because that's what we're teaching. That gender doesn't determine capability. Performance does. A whistle blew. The candidates reformed for the next evolution. Carson stood in the front row. Not hiding, not apologizing for her presence. Just ready. Maya felt something unfamiliar in her chest. Not pride exactly. Something deeper. Hope. Rodriguez checked his watch. I need to get back to admin. You're welcome to stay. Observe as long as you want. Actually, sir, I'd like to talk to them. The candidates. Yes. About what? About what's waiting for them. The good parts. And the hard parts. Rodriguez smiled. I think they'd like that. He arranged it for 1,800 hours. After training. Before chow. The candidates filed into a classroom that barely held them all. 63 bodies packed into a space designed for 50. They sat on desks, stood against walls, filled every available inch. Maya stood at the front. No uniform this time. Just fatigues. No ribbons. No rank. Just her. Rodriguez introduced her. This is Special Operations First Class Maya Chen. Some of you know her name. Some of you know her story. All of you are here because of the changes she fought for. She's going to talk to you about what comes next. Listen, learn, and ask questions if you have them. He left. The door closed. Maya looked at 63 faces, some curious, some skeptical, some exhausted from a day of training that had pushed them to their limits. 3 months ago, I stood in a room like this and told a group of candidates that assumptions are dangerous, that bias gets people killed, that judging someone's capability before you see them perform is the fastest way to fail. She paused. Some of them listened. Most didn't. 3 of them ended up in prison because they couldn't let go of their assumptions long enough to see reality. I'm not here to tell you that story. You already know it. I'm here to tell you what happens after. Carson raised her hand. After what? After you prove yourself. After you earn the trident or the tab or whatever qualification you're chasing. After everyone finally admits you belong. What happens then? Then you do it again. Confusion rippled through the room. What do you mean? I mean, earning the trident didn't end the questions. It just changed them. Instead of, can she make it through training, it became, can she handle deployment? After deployment, it was, can she lead a team? After leading a team, it was, can she train others? Every single milestone I had to prove myself again. And most of you will too. A male candidate in the back spoke up. Why are you telling us this? Isn't that discouraging? I'm telling you this because I wish someone had told me. I spent years thinking that if I just performed well enough, the questions would stop. They don't. They just evolve. And if you're not prepared for that, it'll break you. So what do? You stop trying to make the questions stop. You accept that some people will always doubt you, and you focus on the only opinion that matters, your own. If you know you're capable, their doubt becomes irrelevant. Carson spoke again. But what if you doubt yourself? Maya looked at her. You will. Everyone does. Doubt isn't the enemy. Doubt is information. It tells you what you need to work on. The enemy is letting doubt paralyze you. Feeling doubt and moving forward anyway, that's courage. Did you ever want to quit? Every day of Hell Week. Twice during my first deployment. Once during this evaluation when I realized 3 men were actively trying to destroy me. Why didn't you? Because quitting would have meant they were right. That I didn't belong. That I was too weak or too small or too female. And I refused to give them that satisfaction. Another male candidate raised his hand. What about us, the guys? What do you want from us? I want you to judge your teammates on their performance, not their demographics. I want you to offer help when it's needed without assuming it's needed because someone's female. I want you to call out harassment when you see it instead of staying silent because it's uncomfortable. And I want you to understand that integrated teams aren't a social experiment. They're the future. You can adapt, or you can get left behind. What if we're not comfortable? Get comfortable. Because comfort isn't a right. It's a preference. And your preference doesn't outweigh someone else's right to serve. Silence. Then one of the female candidates, a Marine with a scar across her jaw, spoke. What's the best advice you can give us? Maya thought about it. Don't try to be one of the guys. Don't try to prove you're tougher or stronger or more capable. Just be yourself. Bring your strengths. Acknowledge your weaknesses. Work on both. And remember that the people who matter will judge you on your merit. The people who don't aren't worth your energy. What about the people who actively try to sabotage us? Document everything, report everything. Trust the system. And if the system fails, find someone higher up the chain who won't. There are good leaders out there. Find them. Learn from them. Become them. The questions continued for another hour. Some tactical. Some personal. Some philosophical. She answered everyone honestly. When it ended, the candidates filed out slowly. Carson stopped at the door. Can I ask you something? Of course. Was it worth it, all the fighting, all the proving, all the pain? Was it worth it? Maya looked past her at the facility yard, at the obstacle courses and training bays and endless opportunities to prove capability. Yes, Because every woman who comes after me will have an easier path. Not easy, but easier. And eventually someone will walk through that gate and nobody will question whether she belongs. She'll just belong. That's worth everything I went through. Carson nodded, smiled, left. Rodriguez returned. That was good. Really good. Thank you, sir. I have something for you. He handed her a folder. She opened it. Inside was a letter from the Chief of Naval Operations, commending her evaluation, praising her courage, announcing new service-wide policies based on her recommendations. They're implementing your protocols across all special operations training programs, not just here. Everywhere. She stared at the letter. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep doing what you're doing. Because we need more people like you. People who don't accept the status quo just because it's comfortable. People who fight for change even when it costs them. I'm not a fighter. I'm just an operator trying to do the job. That's what makes you a fighter. You don't do it for glory. You do it because it's right. She closed the folder. What's next for me? That's up to you. You can return to your unit. Take a teaching position here. Transfer to another command. Warcom is offering you any billet you want. I want to get back to my team. You sure you could do a lot of good here? I can do more good in the field. Training the next generation is important, but I'm an operator. That's where I belong. Rodriguez nodded. Then that's where you'll go. But the offer stands. Anytime you want to come back, there's a position waiting. Thank you, sir. She left the facility at 2,000 hours. The sun had set. The California sky had turned that deep blue that comes right before full dark. She stood at the gate for a moment, looking back at the place that had tried to break her and failed. Her phone buzzed. A text from Carson. Thank you for showing us what's possible. She typed back. You showed yourselves. I just cleared some obstacles. Still, it matters. Then make it matter more. Be better than I was. Go further than I did. That's how progress works. I will. We all will. Maya pocketed her phone, walked to her car, drove away from the facility toward whatever came next. She didn't know what the future held. More deployments, probably. More evaluations. More moments where she'd have to prove herself to people who'd already decided she couldn't. But she also knew something else. She wasn't alone anymore. There were 12 women at that facility who understood what she'd fought for. Hundreds more across every branch who were fighting the same fight. And thousands more who would come after them. The path was still hard. But it was visible now. Marked by the footsteps of every woman who'd refused to quit when quitting would have been easier. Maya had been the first in some places, but she wouldn't be the last. And that was the whole point. 6 months later, Carson graduated top of her class, made it into the SEAL pipeline, completed Hell Week on her first attempt. When reporters asked her how she did it, she said something Maya had told her. Doubt isn't the enemy. Doubt is information. The enemy is letting doubt stop you. Feel it and move forward anyway. That's not just courage. That's survival. 2 years later, 5 more women earned their tridents. 3 years later, it was 15. 5 years later, nobody was counting anymore because it wasn't remarkable. It was normal. The facility that had tried to erase Maya Chen became the facility that proved integration worked. The men who'd attacked her became cautionary tales about what happens when ego overrides judgment. And the women who followed her became proof that capability has no gender. Maya continued operating, deploying, training, leading. She never sought recognition, never gave interviews, never told her story unless someone specifically asked. But her legacy spoke louder than words ever could. Every woman who wore the trident, every integrated team that operated seamlessly, every young girl who looked at a SEAL and thought, I could do that instead of, that's not for me. That was Maya's legacy, not the evaluation, not the trial, not the reforms. The women who came after her and went further because she'd proven it was possible. And when Maya finally retired 20 years later, with the rank of senior chief and decorations that covered half her chest, the person who presented her retirement award was Carson, now a lieutenant commander and training officer at the same facility where she'd once struggled on a rope climb. "You changed everything," Carson said. Maya smiled. "No, I changed one thing. You and everyone else did the rest. What one thing? I proved that the only person who gets to decide if you belong is you. Everyone else is just noise." Carson saluted. Maya returned it. And somewhere in that moment, in that exchange between two women who'd both fought battles that shouldn't have been necessary, the transformation that Maya had started finally completed itself. Not because the fight was over. It would never be over. But because enough people had decided to fight alongside her that victory was no longer a possibility. It was inevitable. And when the next young woman walked through that facility gate and someone asked if she belonged, the answer wouldn't be a question anymore. It would be fact. She belonged because she was there, because she was capable, because she refused to accept anything less than the respect her performance demanded. Just like Maya had taught them. Just like Maya had proven. Just like Maya had lived.